think it was Charles told me the first time I was here, he was out sweeping one of the mats off. He said, no matter what you do, those mats attract leaves.
Yes.
From miles away.
When one of them comes by, he grabs it.
It does. Kind of magnetic attraction there.
Yeah. I realize it's better just go ahead and pick them up, put them in something and carry them away, than it is just to blow them off a little ways. Blow them off a little ways,
They come right back.
I know you have your job all ready to go, all your speaking jobs there, the study and the sermon. So since you have all that done, you may as well have the prayer, opening and closing prayer.
I've been. That's how you tell it to small congregations, when you do all the preaching, all the leading, singing, all the prayers, wait on the table.
And Sherry, I forgot what it was, the detail of what it was, but she did a couple of times. Why don't we do that? Look, we didn't hire Lester to do that. That's what we need to be doing, all that. We just hire him to get on the pulpit. He does that. That's great. Yeah, he's doing his job.
And the thing is, that's what everybody ought to be doing.
Yeah.
All of us.
You should be helping train the congregation to do everything,
Right.
including your job.
That's right.
In reality, not me trying to run you off, but
A wise fellow once said, when you build sidewalks, don't build sidewalks immediately. Wait until you see where the people make the path, and then put the sidewalks there. And I'm thinking maybe that's what we need to do with the church times, is instead of posting church, maybe we should just wait till the people show up and then start posting the time for that.
Just secretly tell all the people that are serving, okay, we won't start till 10 minutes after.
Till the last man gets here.
That's right. Yes.
But we can't cut it, we want that way they have to stay long, because it's gonna make Sunday school later,
Or it could be like one professor that he locked his door when time to start, and he didn't let you in either. You just missed class.
That's right.
And it counted as an absence. But that's, I've always been a stickler for being on time, but that's me.
We had to laugh. Our son had one sergeant major making a speech, and this is years and years ago, but he made the comment, he says, if you're a half hour early, you're late. I said, might as well get used to it right now. And okay. None of this, I'm 10 minutes early.
Are we gonna start with Luke this morning or John?
We're going to start with Luke. One 121. We'll pick up there who this guy was.
We have figured out who Theophilus is.
It's funny, Luke starts both Luke and Acts addressing it to Theophilus. Best guess on that is that he was the patron that was paying for copies to be made on that. So it's always funny to me how many people claim, oh, well, they didn't, until the 4th or 5th century, they didn't have copies of the Bible. Actually, in the 300s, in the 4th century, the first emperor tried to destroy every copy of the Bible and ordered everything that could be found in the empire to be burnt. When the next emperor came along and made Christianity legal, one of the first things he did was to order multiple copies of the Bible to be produced, and people were saying, oh, well, there won't be any left. They had no trouble finding Bibles, even after they'd tried to make it extinct.
Kind of like during the early reign of the Catholic Church, when they tried to, that still amazes me. Just absolutely amazing. But that's people.
That's people.
Like Jeremiah said, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. But there's none more wicked than those who claim to be followers of God and do everything contrary to what God says.
And that's one of the funniest ones about so many modern religious people. Oh, I love God, and no, I'm not going to do anything he says, but I really love God. No, you don't. And John's gospel, of course, is one of the best answers to that. John quotes Jesus repeatedly saying, if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. You'll do what you're told. Okay, Luke chapter 1. We'll pick up at verse 21, but you remember what's happened. Zacharias has gone into the holy place and been met by an angel. What was the angel's name? It never says. It doesn't say. That's right. Later on, who's the angel that appears to Mary? That one's Gabriel. By the way, I have seen people in commentaries and all assert that, that was Gabriel that appeared to Daniel, and that was Gabriel that did this and that and the other. One of those things in anywhere else in life, if it doesn't actually say that, you can't just make up things. So we have no idea who the angel is, what his name is. It may have been Gabriel. I mean, are there one or two other angels?
Michael and Gabriel, the only two names that's mentioned.
Names that are mentioned, but John talks about myriads of angels. Okay, anybody count that far? That's a lot of angels. Okay, so Zacharias has seen an angel, and what did the angel tell him?
First, don't be afraid.
First things, don't be afraid.
Okay, over to verse 19. I am Gabriel.
Okay, verse 19, it is Gabriel. So Gabriel's busy. He's going to be going back and forth between Zacharias and Mary soon. Been sent to speak to you, bring this great news. And of course, Zacharias believes it and says, okay, whatever you say, God must be right, huh? Isn't it funny? We a lot of times we talk about, you shouldn't disbelieve God. Did any people in the Bible that are known as really great people of God ever disbelieve God?
Yeah.
All the time. I mean, there's one or two that you really are glad that they didn't, at least at times. Can you imagine Noah telling God, I don't think that's going to happen? Never seen rain like that. We got somewhere between 6 and 8 inches of rain here a couple of days ago, right here, and that's a lot. It wasn't as bad as it was last year in the hurricane, so not as much rain.
We didn't get any rain before it came, tropical storm.
But the thing is, a lot of times people just don't believe God. And these are people that, go on to learn the lesson. So I guess at the very least we can learn. We can be taught. We're just a little slow at it sometimes. And what happens to Zacharias for not believing?
Couldn't speak.
Can't talk. Won't be able to talk. Boy, that would hurt, wouldn't it? Not being able to talk. I mean, how would we ever get along?
Especially his position at that particular time.
As a priest, yes, he was expected to come out and bless the people and all, and instead, pick up at verse 21 there. People are waiting for Zechariah. Apparently he spends some time in there, too long. And they're wondering at his delay in the temple. When he comes out and now he can't speak to them, they realize that he had seen a vision in the temple. Kind of funny, their assumption is, and by the way, you will notice this a number of times in Scripture. People assume that something happened. They do it all the time here in our world today. I think this is what happened. Zacharias didn't see a vision as much as he saw the angel and was talked to in person. He's unable to speak. He realizes he's seen a vision in the temple, and he keeps making signs at them. You ever know anybody that could do sign language, American Sign Language? I have a smart aleck wife. She sits there and does this. It's yes in sign language. We used to work with the deaf program many years ago. And by the way, one of the fun things is how much language changes anyway, spoken language. Sign languages change too. And a lot of signs have changed. So I guess we're really old-fashioned in our speech. But he makes signs to them. What signs did he make to them? If you don't know sign language, boy, you're just trying to, it was a tall angel or it was a short angel, and he had wings and a halo on his head, right? That's how he knew. In spite of all the pictures that appear in Bibles that assure you this is what an angel looks like. By the way, one of the fun ones, is there a passage that ever shows angels with wings? Nope, not at all. There are other beings that God employs and has there in heaven. Which ones have wings if it's not angels? Cherubim. Cherubs and cherubim have wings. What's the difference between them and an ordinary angel? Or are they the ordinary ones and the angels are the special ones? Not a clue. It's really kind of amazing how little we know about heaven and how God's designed. What's one of the best books to find out about heaven currently? What's going on there now? Book of Revelation. But even that is kind of puzzling in a lot of things. And again, remember, John is trying to see visions of things that he absolutely does not understand. Oh, good, I can pick on Mark again. If we take Mark and put him in the cockpit of our son's helicopter, would you know how to fly it?
I bet I could crash it pretty good.
I'm not sure I could find the start button. Which may be a very safe thing, it keeps me from getting in trouble. And how would you explain all the things that you find in there? I mean, you would try to explain them in terms of things that you know and understand, but would they be right, technically right, for what a person that actually knows what all that is?
That's like the four blind man trying to describe an elephant.
An elephant. Which part you grab of it, you think the whole thing is like that. And that, honestly, realize that when John writes the book of Revelation and those visions that he sees, especially the visions of heaven, that's the problem he has. What do eternal things look like?
Eye has not seen, ear has not heard, nor has it appeared in the heart of man what God has laid up for us.
We really have no common language to understand those things. So the difficulty is, how on earth to let other people know. We can share knowledge with as far as what God says, but a lot of times we're just left speechless, kind of like Zacharias was. He keeps making signs at them, but he remains mute. And when the days, does he go home? Is he get sent home right away because he can't talk? He stays for the rest of the term that he is assigned to come and serve in the temple for. So verse 23, when the days of his priestly service were ended, then he goes back home. So for some period of time, he has to stay there. And kind of a funny situation, isn't it? Because the priests are involved in the sacrifices, the daily sacrifices at the altar, the individual sacrifices of people as they come and go all day long. He has a job to do. How hard would it be if you couldn't talk?
You could do it, you just can't do any of the vocal stuff.
Yeah, how do you talk to the people that come in, nearly a year later, Mary comes to the temple with Jesus, and the ceremony there of buying him back from God as the firstborn son. You suppose the priests had some words to say as part of that ceremony? Would have been a number of things involved there, and Zacharias can't do any of that in his time serving. So, well, he goes back home, and it's always funny to me. We tend to read things a lot of times as being instantly happening. God tells Abraham, as a young man, I'm going to bless you, and he just filled with confidence and never has to think about it again, right? He's going to struggle with that, and it's going to take time. When Abraham and Sarah are finally told that they're going to have a son within a year, what do? In a very practical sense, you suppose they tell each other we're going to sleep in separate bedrooms for the next year and see how God's going to do this. The ordinary course of events for all of life continue. And that's important to realize. That's really what verse 24 is saying. After these days, Elizabeth, his wife, became pregnant. So it's going to be some time. Funny part is, what's unique about Elizabeth and Zacharias? They're old. They're old. They're older than dirt. They're really old. There's not any chance of them having a child. And it's kind of interesting picture there, verse 24. The first thing she does, the first 5 months, she stays in seclusion. She doesn't go out. That means she doesn't go to the mall, go shopping for maternity clothes. She doesn't go out and tell all of her friends. She stays in seclusion for 5 months. Okay, maybe some of the ladies can help us out here. What happens in about 5 months with first pregnancy? You start showing. It becomes pretty obvious. Now, sometimes it becomes obvious to the woman quite a while before that, right? If you're into morning sickness, that's a different story. But 5 months, Now it can't be hidden. Anybody that sees her is beginning to realize she's pregnant. And her reasoning for staying in, and look at verse 25. This is the way the Lord has dealt with me in the days when he looked. At first thought, this is how God has dealt with me. First thought is, well, that's a complaint. Look what God has done to me. This is terrible. But you got to, like anything else, you got to get the whole statement there. This is the way the Lord has dealt with me in the days when he looked with favor upon me, to take away my disgrace among men. A priest, she's from the priestly tribe, from the tribe of Levi. Her husband is a Levite. This is the perfect power couple in their world. And their children are, double Levites. They're entitled to be considered for higher ranks within the priesthood. But they have no children. And now, to her, this is, on the other hand, isn't it interesting? She sees it as the solution of a good priestly couple having a child. But how does God see this child?
Well, he sees it as one who's going to be the forerunner of Christ.
Okay. Here's the one that's in charge of announcing the coming of the Savior himself into the world. By the way, how many times do we realize that John the Baptist was a priest? Was qualified to serve in the temple, and doubly qualified because both of his parents says, he had the right to, at the very least, serve in the temple every so often, every couple of years, like his father had, and at the very least he had the right to go into the holy place at least once in his lifetime. He forgoes all of that. God has a different job for him.
He was also a Nazarite.
Also a Nazarite. He is really considered an outstanding man of God from birth. Okay, name somebody else that was under the Nazarite vow. Samson. And it's, again, there's a funny story. People talk about Samson as he's a terrible example. He did all kinds of things wrong. God, must have hated him. Might want to go back and read. This was a man chosen of God to serve as one of the judges of Israel. Is he human and make mistakes? Probably so. But don't point at everything that he said or did and say, well, that was him being wrong and not following God, because there's a couple of things that he did that specifically says back there in Judges that this was God telling him to do something.
You just made a point that made me think.
Okay?
So, John the Baptist, both of his parents were Levites. This is Nazarite, had all of these things going for him. And all of these things going for him were nothing, he had nothing to do with it.
No.
He was lucky to be born to a pair of Levites, and his parents taught him from birth that he was going to be a Nazarite. There's nothing he did. It's just something he fell into, so to speak.
Just who he was.
But then when you consider what it was that he did, what he actually did was reject all of those things. Society said, you're great, you're awesome, you're going to be the best. And he said, I'm going to go live in a cave,
Yeah.
eat bugs. That's I don't know, it just strikes me as something peculiar that there's what society puts on you, and then there's what you actually do as a man.
And by the way, in royal families, you see exactly the same thing. The Crown Prince of England, what has he got to do with, what did he do to deserve to be the next king? So it was nothing he did. It's not his, the fact that his mother and father were royalty, and his ancestors were royalty, and his father is the current king, and he is entitled to. None of that is anything he has to do with. He can't take credit for any of that. This is not a self-made man in any sense at all. And sometimes we see people that they feel they're entitled because I have the best looking hair. I'm entitled to a better position than the rest of you. That doesn't mean anything, really, does it? But it is pretty good looking head, isn't it? So you see the point. That there's nothing about him. He is in a sense the lottery winner. He's accidentally been given all the things that would seem to make him great, and yet what really makes him great and memorable to history has nothing to do with those things. Has everything to do with what he was chosen by God to do.
Well, that's the point. He was foreordained by God.
Okay. Chosen by God for a job. You recall a guy, one of the apostles, that's kind of in the same situation? This guy is elite status in the Jewish leadership, and he walks away from all of that. Paul. Kind of an incredible thought, isn't it? And you go back to some of the things Jesus would comment in his teaching. The one of you who would be greatest of all has to be what? Servant of all, the least. Apparently our view of greatness is just not quite what God's view of greatness is. And we picture, I know I've seen actual photographs of David killing Goliath, and he's this 6 foot tall, muscular young man. You realize he's a shrimp of a little kid? He's a child. He can't even be considered for the military. His job is to stay home and tend the sheep. No wonder his big brother chews him out. You just came out here to show off and see what's going on. Play army. Go home. What we see is not always what God sees. And that illustration keeps coming up over and over again. John the Baptist. And John throws all that away, all of his greatness, potential, to go live in the wilderness.
Well, who better to announce the coming of Christ who does the exact same thing?
Than somebody that's chosen of God and not really worried about how great they are.
His royalty to come down here and live like a man.
Exactly. By the way, you see the significance for us? It's not about how great I am. It's about how much I can do for the Lord. Doing His will is the priority. And that's, that challenge. Lord has looked with favor upon me. Take away my disgrace among men. She doesn't realize, I don't think Elizabeth realizes the half of how great she becomes and what her child will do. Okay. She doesn't show herself for 5 months. Verse 26, Luke 1, verse 26 begins now in the 6th month. So, kind of keep in sequence. She's now roughly 3 months from full term and delivering John the Baptist. In the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God to a city in Galilee called Nazareth. And the Greek word is literally a virgin. The Old Testament word that is used in prophecy of a virgin being with child is technically the word for a young woman. How many 8, 10-year-olds girls are not virgins? That's kind of the basic assumption, you know, that they're that young. Okay. So this young woman is a virgin. She has never, but she is engaged to a man. What's his name? Joseph. One of the descendants of David. And the virgin's name was Mary. Okay. This one buffaloes people. I know, again, from all the photographs you've seen of Mary. Number one, you can tell that she's Mary because she has a halo over her head and probably wings budding and poking out the back. You know, we get hilarious. Where do we get our ideas for what biblical people look like? Catholic Church. The medieval world where paintings were made to look like people in Italy. Yeah, just really kind of, if you think about it, it's a little comical, isn't it? We've all seen John the Baptist with his neatly trimmed beard and his shoulder-length hair. And, you know, just keep in mind, what did he actually look like? Shaggy dog. His beard had never been trimmed. Nazirite vow requirements. Even Jewish men were not allowed to cut the corn. Isn't it funny how many neatly trimmed beards show up as biblical people? There were no Jews with a neatly trimmed beard. Not if they were actually following what the Bible said. They all had the scraggly beards that grew out everywhere. John the Baptist, with his hair long. How long was Jesus' hair? Oh, depends on which picture you've seen, huh? We don't know. Not under a Nazirite vow, his hair could be cut, but it probably was never cut as short as mine. It was never probably cut ever as short as any of us. Apparently, barbers were hard to come by in that world. But we tend to picture things without realizing the reality of that world. And one of the biggest difficulties is that people have the average age of marriage for young women in that world, especially true in Galilee region. Some of them would be a little bit older, maybe in Jerusalem, especially if they're from good families and looking for a real catch. Maybe one of the priests, snag one of the priests or something. But a young girl in Nazareth and most of the rest of the Roman world, the average age at marriage was 12 to 13 years of age. The term in that world for a girl that is 15 or 16 and getting married is old maid. And I've had people say, well, I'm offended by that. Well, life is tough. But that's reality. Mary was not 30 years of age as a young woman when Jesus was born. Not a chance. Because the very words that describe her would have been never as a young woman. After the age of about 18 or 20, they would have always been labeled as old maid. By the way, fun little fact, in English law, at weddings, they spell out in the marriage document there exactly your status as being, women especially. Men are either unmarried, never married, widowed, divorced, but women are usually specified as to their age. Wow. And the terms literally come out as old maid if you're unmarried and over, what? Do you remember what it was? Some around 30 years of age or so. They basically were using terms that we would consider them a little derogatory, wouldn't we? Understand the world of the New Testament. Mary is, at the very oldest, a very young teen. She's engaged. Typical Jewish engagements lasted a year. And by the way, a Jewish engagement meant a lot more than it does in our world today. Technically, if you broke an engagement, it was considered a divorce. We don't, our customs don't really align with that, and it's easy for people to try and press our world on the biblical world and say, well, this is the way it should be. No. Should it be different? Should we adopt their standard and marry off our 12, 13-year-old daughters? As a father of daughters, that ain't going to happen. I assured my daughters from the day they were born that they could start dating when they hit 30, 35. We're real stern about that, aren't we? Didn't work. Just so you know. But the reality is that this world is very different. A virgin engaged to a man whose name was Joseph. Of the descendants of David, the virgin's name was Mary, and now Gabriel comes in and he says to her, "Greetings, favored one. The Lord is with you." And verse 29 is kind of interesting. Her response, and we'll come back and look at Mary in greater detail with Mary and Joseph, but just think about what's said even in passing here. An angel of the Lord has come in and announced that you are the chosen one, favorite of God. Wow. She was perplexed at this statement and kept pondering what kind of salutation this was. What is this guy talking about? The angel said to her, "Do not be afraid. You found favor with God. Behold, you will conceive in your womb, bear a son. You shall name him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. And he will rule over the house of Jacob for how long? Until he dies and leaves it to somebody else? Verse 33, forever.
Going back to Daniel and the stone that broke the...
This is a never-ending kingdom. And a king whose reign and authority will never end. And his kingdom will have no end. Mary's reply is, how can this be? I'm a virgin. Is this something I'm supposed to do, get married quicker? Is this something that's supposed to happen? Angels reply, the Holy Spirit will come upon you, the power of the Most High will overshadow you. For that reason, the Holy Child shall be called the Son of God. Behold, even your relative Elizabeth has also conceived a son in her old age. And she who was called barren is now in her 6th month. Nothing is impossible with God. Remember this young lady. I think it would be impressive if she were 25 or 30 years of age. But given that the facts suggest, and by the way, she's still known to be around, alive and around with John in Ephesus some 70 years later. So if she was 30 years of age, you suppose Mary lived to be 100, 110, 120 years of age? Probably not. So what would a teenager, barely a teenager, hearing something like this, how would they respond?
You gotta be kidding me.
Say what? There's no way they're going to believe this. You know, it says a lot about Mary and how she's been raised. She evidently knows her Bible well enough to understand what's being said to her. There's none of this, I've never heard of any of this prophecies before. Instead, she simply replies, behold, New American Standard says the bond slave. There is no such word in Greek. It's doulos, the slave of the Lord. I have no rights. I understand that. I belong to God. By the way, that's the term, the same term that is used repeatedly by nearly every New Testament writer about their relationship to Jesus. Why don't I'm an apostle and I'm better than you are, Mark? Look at how great I am. Not a one. Nearly every single one of them identify themselves. Even James and John, or James and Jude, brothers of Jesus, never identify themselves as, hey, I'm actually the earthly brother of Jesus. We're half brothers. I'm as close to God as anybody on this earth ever will be. Never once do they write anything like that. They call themselves the slaves of Jesus Christ.
I wonder that Mary's reaction to the news from the angel was more accepting than John's mother's.
Oh, yes.
But Mary probably had, I mean, amongst, not taking anything away from her, but the benefit of youth, where they're much more willing to accept new information and new data as something with wonder. And the older you get, the more jaded you get. You're like, no, I've been around a long time. The way that stuff's that's unbelievable, but the youth still has that willingness to accept wonder.
So you're saying that maybe we could learn something from our young people in our attitude toward God? Maybe we need to approach God with a little more sense of wonder, of awe, and say, hey, whatever you say, God, that's fine with me.
Well, that's the remainder of her statement is always intrigued me as her response of, depending on your version, let it be done unto me according to your word and to your will. And how often do we acknowledge that in our prayers as, be it unto me according to your word, rather than, Lord, do it for me according to my word.
Yes. Here's what I want. And by the way, do you also notice the echo in Jesus' prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane? I got my ideas of how things are going to work out. I suppose Mary had her ideas of how her wedding was going to work out and her marriage to Joseph was going to work out and what all the plans would be. And those are gone now. What's going to happen? Well, we'll leave that. We'll look at Joseph and Mary as another couple in a couple of weeks. But Mary, as the angel departs, Mary gets up and hurries to the hill country, to a city of Judah. Okay, Galilee region is up around the Sea of Galilee. Judah is the region down, Judea is the region down around Jerusalem. So she has to travel a ways and enters the house of Zacharias and greets Elizabeth. By the way, there's a word that's used there for their relationship in the King James Version, that they're cousins. It's not the Greek word at all. It's just they're relatives. How are they related? By the way, just a fun fact, if Elizabeth is a Levite, the tribal affiliation goes by the father. That means her father was a Levite. Could her mother have been of the tribe of Judah? Absolutely. In fact, it's already been commented on, the uniqueness of Elizabeth being a Levite and Zechariah being a Levite. So that means both are descendants from their father's side of the tribe of Levi. But you always have two parents. And your other parent can be of a different tribe. And so, is it possible for Elizabeth and Mary to be close cousins? Absolutely. On the other hand, how many Jewish people are not relatives of other Jewish people? They're all descended from Jacob. All descended from Abraham, Isaac. They're all, by the way, how many of us are related? Every last one of us. At the very worst, we're all descended from Noah or one of his 3 sons and their daughters. So that makes an ancestor of ours, Noah, and we're all cousins. I always thought family reunions were amazing. Cousins came out of the woodwork. People I'd never known, never seen before. I can vaguely remember I have cousins all over the South, and whew. That's why, Michelle, I never speak bad about anybody in Alabama. They might be relatives, so. And that's why Michelle and I don't talk too much about who all we're related to. But what happens? Interesting little footnote in history. Who is the first person on earth to recognize Jesus?
John the Baptist.
John, still in the womb. An unborn baby recognizes another unborn baby as essentially his Savior, his God.
Horses don't like to hear that verse.
No. We're out of time, but read the comments there. There's quite a song between Elizabeth and Mary back and forth. They talk. They're prophesying. How on earth do these two women know the things that they say? They have some inside information from God. They're not just saying, hey, you have a nice baby and I have a nice baby and they'll grow up as cousins and friends and we'll get together often. It's none of that. It's just a tiny bit of understanding of exactly how great these two individuals will be. And that ought to be a tiny bit of understanding of how late we are. Time to quit. We'll pick up there next week. Thank you.